date I've had from 2014 or 15 is here. That's how you know we mean business. It still has a home button. I literally only keep it for situations like this where I film. So the iPad is out. We mean business. I am excited to read through these. It was kind of a long day for me so far. Not necessarily a bad day, just a long day. I could really use some time to decompress, and this is how I'm gonna do it tonight. So we're gonna do it together, if that's cool. Is that cool? Okay. So hopefully these are good, but honestly, they usually are. So I'm not really worried. So sit back, relax, listen to the sound of my whispers, and let's get into these terrible date stories, okay? So this first one says, I almost messed up even managing to go on the date by getting super drunk the night before with some friends and sending her a completely unintelligible series of texts that I had no recollection of sending her. Usually these are written from the point of view of like it was the other person that was terrible. This might be a little different. Let's see. I woke up about lunchtime the next day and she had been trying to call me as we were meant to be meeting at 2. I called her straight back and apologized profusely. She was actually super cool about it, said we've all been there, and if I still wanted to meet her, she was on her way into town. She seems really nice. Amazing. What a great person giving me a chance even though I'd been an absolute nightmare. Best behavior today. You'll suffer through the hangover as punishment and make the effort she deserves. Okay. Had a shower, changed, and I think it means and took a couple of ibuprofen for the hangover and hopped on the bus into town. These were a brand of ibuprofen I'd not taken before. However, and on the bus to town, I started getting quite hot. Probably just the hangover sweats, right? I feel kind of itchy too on my chest. Maybe it's just from drying a bit aggressively in my rush. Get to the bar and I meet her. Are you okay? You look a bit red, she says. Yeah, sorry, I've been in a rush, I reply, my voice scratchier than I remember it being. I think we all know where this is going. Less than 10 minutes of conversation later, and my lips and eyelids feel like they've begun swelling up. I go to the bathroom to discover that under my shirt, my entire torso is covered in blotches. I have been there. I've taken medication that I'm allergic to. It's terrible. I had to cut the date short and run to the pharmacy to buy some antihistamines. I had been at the bar for 12 minutes. We had been speaking for 3 months, and I never spoke to her again. Oh, I didn't realize they'd been together for 3 months. Alright. I never spoke to her again. Genuinely think my parting words were, I think there's something wrong with me. And I still stand by those words. Oh, I can see how that's really embarrassing, but I don't know, if I was in her position, like, me personally, I don't think that that would be a reason to, like, never talk to somebody again, you know what I mean? Like, it happens, it's literally happened to me, so, oh, but I can see how that's really embarrassing. Okay, this one says, back when Tinder first came out, I matched with and started talking to a girl who was in my same city in Florida. She and I agreed to meet at a restaurant I had been to a few times before. We had talked about it being her and me, but when she arrived, she was dragging a kid with her, which she had never mentioned she had, let alone bringing him. She sits down and almost immediately gets on her phone to largely ignore me and the kid. I tried striking up conversation, but it was clear she was not here for me at all. So her kid and I started coloring on placemats, drawing cartoon characters and things like that. The food arrives and we all eat, and then she asks if she can order another entree. I had no intention of paying for her food at this point, so I said sure. I get up to use the bathroom and go see the waiter about the check. I pay for my food and the kid's meal because he and I were having a pretty good time drawing mine a friend of a friend on a night out, and we hit it off, so I got her number, set up a dinner date later that week. The day of, she texted me that her grandpa had passed away. I told her it was okay to reschedule, but she still wanted to go out. She said there's a typo there. Let's see what it's supposed to say. She said, I'm gonna guess, she said she was on her way to the city and just didn't want to be alone. I agreed, knowing it would probably be a little rough, but boy did I underestimate it. She showed up wasted and proceeded to drink another 4 drinks at dinner. The entire conversation revolved around how she was bisexual for some reason. After dinner, we decided to meet up with mutual friends at a party because I wanted to have some extra support since it seemed that she was spiraling. At that point, the conversation turned to her aggressively attempting to take me home and sleep with me, which I declined since she was blackout drunk and I had had maybe 3 drinks. She was offended by that and proceeded to tell me and ask her friends why I was a terrible person and that I'd never find love. I decided to call it a night at that point and tried to get her a ride home, but she refused. Got one of her friends to walk her home and never spoke again. That seems to be a common thread or a common trend here. Okay, this one is a little bit longer, so let's see. Say it's a little bit longer. I asked him, just kidding. Sorry. He had told me prior to the date that he was a widower. Once I arrived at the restaurant, he told me he was saving me a parking spot by standing in it. I asked him not to, as I think it's a jerk move, and told him I had already parked. Who wants to start a date pissing off other people who were trying to park? And yes, he said someone yelled at him while he did it, so he wanted me to make it worthwhile by changing my spot. Immediately, that would have been an ick for me. As soon as we were seated, he said, well, let me show you some recent vacation pics, and spent like 10 minutes explaining all of his vacation pictures to me. They were all him alone in the wilderness in different spots with the same dead-eyed stare. Guys, I'm so glad I don't have to go on first dates anymore. Then I mentioned my divorce, and he made this big production of how I must be so frustrated that he hadn't told me how his wife died. I said, no, that's fine for now. Then he says, in case you don't believe me, and shoves his phone in my face. He was showing me his wife's death certificate. In case I don't believe what? Oh. But a little trigger warning here. Just a little one, okay? Because I didn't proofread these. In case I don't believe what? That she took her own life. Why would I doubt that? Had there been some questions about his involvement? Why did he have his wife's death certificate at the ready just like that? I changed the subject, realizing there's no way I'd go out with him again, but he seems very intense, so I was wary of upsetting him. That's really scary. He held up a plastic trash bag that was stuffed with plates of food, cake, cobbler, pie. He said my neighbor brought me some food, so I thought I'd share it with you. At this point, I know there is no way I'd dare to eat whatever he brought. He doesn't seem stable. It was awkward to be at a restaurant with a massive trash bag of desserts next to me. As I'm trying to wrap up our Olive Garden date, he started planning our next date. Ooh. He wanted to cook for me at his place. I said, I wouldn't be comfortable going to your house on a second date, I'm sorry. He says, unprompted, don't worry about it. If I get too excited, I know to be a gentleman and go to the bathroom. Wow. I'm gonna let you use your imagination. And then he said, then we can go about our evening. The waitress quickly brought our check over, probably because he hadn't said this quietly. I made it to my car, and that was that. Wow. First of all, kudos to the waitress if that's actually what happened, and I'm so glad this girl got to her car, because I actually would be like fearing for my life in situations like that. That is so uncomfortable and so scary. Wow. assumption was that he was meeting up with her and a few of their other friends for a night out. Turns out it was her and 5 other guys, and she was doing a mini version of The Bachelor. Oh, I've seen girls on TikTok do that. In her mind, it was better to meet up with 6 guys in one night and determine who she wanted to see again, as opposed to meeting with 6 different guys on 6 different nights. It apparently did not turn out well for her, but the dudes ended up hanging out with each other all night and bar hopping. Yeah, I feel like if you were gonna do that, that would literally just be, I could be wrong, but I feel like, to me, that's more of an I want attention thing, because, like, how good does The Bachelor usually work out? You know what I mean? Yeah, not what I would advise people to do, but that's just me. Okay, the next one says she showed up with 4 of her friends and told them not to worry. Moneybags was paying. That's so rude. Me being Moneybags, apparently. They ordered tons of food and drinks. I got up to go to the men's room and snuck out. Didn't respond to the 50+ angry texts I got over the next few hours. Those girls must have been ridiculously young, because who does that? Who does that? Okay. Ooh, this first sentence intrigues me. It says, I cringe so hard whenever I think about the time that I was the bad date. I was visiting her city. I lived 8 hours away, and asked if she wanted to go on a date while I was in town catching up with old friends. Granted, this was about 9 days prior, and little did I know that my favorite baseball team was going to make it to Game 7 of one of the best World Series of all time. Okay. Of course, the only night she could meet was the night of Game 7, and even though I'm not someone who drinks that much, and I quit smoking over a decade ago, championship baseball and football games are the only times I indulge in both to excess due to nerves. Well, she agreed to meet up at a wine bar for a late evening date following the game, and what she got instead of some dashing out-of-towner was a slobbery, smoky mess of a man who was teetering on blacking out. Thank God my friend saved me from myself and quietly escorted me out of the situation, but I wish I had blacked out a few minutes earlier so that I don't remember my early attempts at being sexy / charming, etc. Yikes. Okay. The next one. It was winter time and my job cut our hours. I'm a cook, and I met this girl on Tinder. We decided to meet at a cool bar that had live music. I show up and she has 4 friends with her, so she barely talked to me. Okay, she turns around to tell me she forgot her wallet and asked if I could buy her a drink, then turned to chat with her friends again. You need an ID to get in the bar, so where's the wallet? Okay, I buy myself a beer. Then my priorities came in my mind. I did not buy her a drink because she didn't tell me what she wanted. While her back was to me talking to her friends, I downed my beer, paid in cash, thanked my bartender, and walked out the door. She didn't even notice. I walked to another place and ordered a beer by myself and was talking to the chef. I got a job at that place to make up for my lost wages for it being the slow season at my other job. She really wanted to meet up. So within 5 minutes of person-to-person contact, I realized she wanted free drinks, and I needed a job. Worst date ever, but the new job was awesome. Oh, I get it. Most of these seem to be written by men, which is very interesting because I feel like normally when I read Reddit posts, most of them are written by women in my experience. So it's interesting to like get the other point of view. Okay, but this one I believe was written by women. Okay. He was more than 3 hours late and was texting me telling me that he was 20 minutes away for 2 of those hours. As soon as he arrived, he tried to tell me to leave the part of the venue / dive bar I'd already paid in so we could go where he wanted to go. Tried to start a fight with a friend I'd happened to run into and called my aunt, who he talked me into going out with him in the first place. Oh, he called her aunt the B word. I just walked away from him after that last word, and we never spoke again. I waited so long because I liked the bands that were playing. I wouldn't have stayed if I was sitting around doing nothing. He got there just before the last band finished, but I'd had about enough of him by then because he'd been telling me that he was on the train in the same place for 2 hours. We don't live out in the watch Love is Blind. Dave. God forgive me. I'm sure he has gotten better. I'd like to think he's gotten better and has matured, but that's what came to mind as I was reading that. Alrighty. The next one. I got set up by a coworker. I met her at a bar. We had a few drinks and she got absolutely wasted. Bar staff threw us out. She got really angry, made a scene. Cops showed up. She took a swing at one and got us both arrested. I got pulled over when the cop threw her down. Another cop jumped on me and cuffed me too. Jeez. Cops thought it was odd I was with her but didn't know her and figured I was lying about how much we drank or what drugs we were on. I pointed out I was innocent and still sober. They eventually believed me and let me go as they took her away. It was 8:30 p.m. and still daylight. This was before cell phones and social media. I never figured out why she went crazy or what happened with her. I just figured she was drunk when I got there, but I didn't really notice. Do you guys go through stuff like this too? The next dating stories video I should ask you guys for your submissions. I've already done my part. I've made a dating horror stories video before, like a year or two ago, but I would love to hear yours, so that's an idea, maybe. I hope they're not this bad, but I would love to know what you guys have gone through. If you hear thumping, Luna is scratching herself. I went out to lunch with a man. His phone kept ringing and he kept ignoring it, but after so many times he took the call. Someone wanted to know where he was. He told them, said he'd be there a little later, apologized, said he couldn't come right now, just to give it an hour or so. He told me to forget he was supposed to, he told me he forgot he was supposed to help his neighbor with something, but it could wait. 20 minutes later, his baby mama showed up with 3 kids, yelled at him about forgetting what time he was supposed to pick them up, called me too pretty to be wasting my time with him, and left the kids in the restaurant. Wow. Okay. It was the weekend that the UK went into the first COVID lockdown. Daytime date. I came home early. Evening. The date itself wasn't terrible. It was what happened after. He bombarded me with messages asking to stay with me during lockdown. I said no, obviously. I didn't know him. I still had to work. In his last message before I blocked him and reported him, he called me a stupid, ungrateful slag. I don't know what that means. I know it's British, like, I know it's not a good thing, but I really know what it means, but it's not nice. Okay, that's terrible. This one is short and sweet. It says, he remembered to bring his mother, but forgot to bring his wallet. After I paid for all 3 of us, he had the gall to ask me for a loan and a second date. Apparently his mother wanted to see me again. My first and last blind date. Wow. Okay. It was a first date. I was having a lovely time chatting with him online. We lived about 2 hours apart from each other, and we decided to meet in a small town he recommended that he visits. I decided to take a risk and head up to the town. Don't worry, my location was on the entire time, and I had a friend on standby to bail me out with a simple panic call to get me out or check if I'm alive. When we finally met in person, it was just awkward. He hardly said a word, and all we did was sit in a cafe, just awkwardly people watch. I kept trying and trying to strike up conversation, but it kept falling flat. And then he dropped this line, "You look very beautiful." And jokingly I said, "Oh my gosh, stop it, you're just being nice," in a very obvious, playful manner. Even did the whole pretend to the cat paw thing, like that. And then he looked at me and said, "See, it seems like you have a lot of confidence issues, which is why I'm finding it hard for connection." I was flabbergasted, mouth to the ground and eyes widened. 5 minutes later, my friend made the emergency call and I bailed. I was so confused and felt like I was punched in the mouth. I was the one trying to make conversation and anything I could to keep the date going. Oh, wow. Okay. We hit it off within minutes. She was out of my league, but I'm quite bites my chest. I tried to laugh it off and pretend it didn't hurt. Maybe she was just nervous and a little tipsy. A few minutes later, she bit me again. That once beautiful white smile was now attached to my right bicep. Then she invites me back to hers. I'm confused and in pain, but all I'm thinking about is, you know, what most guys think about in a situation like that. I left her apartment the next morning looking like I had been mauled by a bear. Politely declined a second date. Yikes. Alright, I'm gonna read just like a few more. I met her online and met up for a movie and then drinks. Everything was going well, but when I went to the bathroom, a completely different girl was sitting at our table. She turned out to be the friend of our date, or the friend of the date. She started to interrogate me for a while and then signaled for my date to come back to the table. Whatever test it was, I passed. The friend suggested we go to a 𝓢𝓸𝓬𝓲𝓪 bar. I hate smoke of every kind, but I liked my date. And I went. The place was run by a really shady guy who kept stroking my shoulders, and everyone was high. He kept asking how cool I was, and made some really off comments about the girls. I didn't feel comfortable and left after a little while. I texted her to tell her it wasn't going to work out. She texted me that her friend is crazy and we should go out again, but it never happened. Alright, let's pick one more. Let's see. I'm gonna try and find like a good one here. I'm trying to pick one that has like a decent amount of votes and engagement, because that means that it will be a good one. Alright, let's see. Let's do this one, I guess. Okay, I asked a former coworker out to coffee after she quit. She seemed enthusiastic when I asked her, but the next day she was cold and barely engaged. After about 45 minutes, I said, "Thanks for getting coffee with me, but I need to get home." And then it got more awkward as we discovered her car was towed, so I drove her to the yard to get it. That was the last time I saw her. She texted that night, "Thanks for a good time, but I don't think we're compatible." I responded, "Good luck with your new job." A week later, a work friend of both of ours told me that she came out as lesbian, Apparently, she said yes to me asking her out as a last attempt to connect with a man, and later realized she didn't want to make that connection and didn't want to be rude to me. She insisted on paying for her own drink. That was nice. I hope she's happy and found her person, and I met my wife 4 months later. The rest don't really have a lot of votes, so I think we'll leave it at that, but I love making these videos. I really do. I think that they're so much fun. So let me know what you guys think about doing another one, maybe reading your stories. I'm also gonna do another big sister, like, girl talk Q&A type video very soon, because I think it's been like over a year since we've done that, so we're gonna do that soon as well. So